Sam, as always, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the podcast. It's always a privilege to have you on.
It's always a joy to be with you, Travis and Cameron. Travis, you are the one who, we just as talking heads, but you are the one who really makes it happen.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
yeah, everybody knows it's Travis. So thank you.
Appreciate that. So we're kind of leaning into your new book, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But we're talking about this idea of voices, and I'm really excited about this conversation because I've got three children of my own, and one of the biggest things I'm always concerned about is what kind of voices are they listening to. So I guess we'll get started with, tell us a little bit about your upbringing, maybe a little bit about the influence your parents have played on your life and how that kind of has led you to where you are today.
So I know we're going to talk about the book later, but the context is I just became, I don't know why I wasn't so aware of it earlier on, but lately I just became more aware of the influence of voices, and that we are sum total of the voices that have been in our lives. So for example, your three kids, they're hearing your voice right now. So right now, the strongest voices in their life are mom and dad at this point. And then those voices start getting more voices in there. And so now they have teachers and friends, and if they go to church, they got church leaders there. They got cousins and, all that kind of stuff. So more voices are coming in their life. And our voices just your voice as parents get to be one of the voices. And so you have to, as a parent, work toward making sure that your voice may not be the loudest voice, but the most consequential voice at the end of the day. So the question about my parents, Travis, is I grew up in a pastor's home in India. So my parents were leading a church. And so, of course, the voices were quite spiritual and ethical, full of integrity. And then my my father, especially my mother too, but my father especially was quite a strict disciplinarian. And so his voice was always a strong voice. The inflections of his voice that made a difference. And I think everybody listening to us right now, Travis and Cameron, would say to us that even if their parents are dead, like my parents, my mother died in 1982, my father died in 1991, but their voices are still strong. Still hear still hear them, especially when I am making some tough choices, some tough decisions, or thinking about different pathways to take in my life. I can hear their voices in my life. So how is that influencing my pursuits today? I became more and more convinced that my voice, and this is not supposed to be braggadocious or an arrogant statement or a proud statement, except to say that my voice matters in somebody's head. And again, and I hope nobody's taking it wrong, but voices matter. So because the question that you asked me about how my parents' voice mattered in my life, it continues to matter because the voices in our head become the voices in our mouth, and the voices in our mouth become voices in somebody else's head. So in some way or the other, I might be passing my voices. I shouldn't say might. I have passed the voices down to my parents to their grandchildren, which are my children.
Mm. Yeah, I think I definitely appreciated the time we spent together in Aruba when you first talked about this, talking about voices, and we've been able to hear, bits and pieces of your story throughout us getting to know you, Sam, and wanted to kind of continue that a little bit because I feel like all of these that you talk about leading up to this book, Voices, a lot of what you've experienced have impacted not only the voice within you, but also the voice that's coming out of you and the voices that you're being to others. So a little bit more about your journey and story. Can you talk a little bit about how your transition from India was to the United States, and how voices played a role in that transition for you?
Wow. Transition. You use that word frequently in that question. So Cameron, when I came from India, I was 20 in 1973. And transition implies that we're kind of going, like this, slowly from one to the other. When I came here, it was no transition. It was like dumped into this thing called America, right? So overnight, so imagine I've never traveled. First time I got on a plane was to fly thousands of miles across the world to India. So there was no transition there. It was overnight. My primary language changed. It was only English. Overnight, my diet changed. There was no curry. There was no naan. There was no biryani. I mean, there was just nothing like that. It was, had it not been for Tabasco and ketchup, we might not be talking here today. And yeah, so my diet changed overnight. My mode of communication changed. I did not know people's culture like that. I did not study the culture of the United States and the people. So all of a sudden, there were these voices that were speaking into my life. Some of them could not understand them contextually. I could understand them, of course. They were speaking English. I was in Atlanta, so I was speaking more Southern than English. But those who are not from this area will not understand that. So the historical aspects of it, the nuances of it. So sometimes they would say things to me that made no sense to me because I did not have any context for that. Things that they assumed, nuances. So, for example, when I first came here, we had students in the dormitory. Some of them were from the north, some of them from the south. And one day I remember them saying, and we won the war. I said, what do you mean we? Who's the we? Aren't you all Americans? So, I did not know there was a civil war. Confederate Union. I just did not know that. So those voices that were confusing, voices without context, voices that were so nuanced, voices that assumed that I had a certain background in whatever they were talking about. And then there were voices that I did not understand where they were coming from, how they viewed me. I remember one of my teachers in one of my classes one day asked me, so I'm 20 now, I'm in Bible college, and one of my teachers asked me, what kind of hut did you live in? And I can still remember that question. And my first response would have been, you ignorant? We lived in a house. So I just asked, but I remember my answer to her was, we lived in a house. We didn't live in a hut. She said, oh, I thought everybody in India lived in a hut. National Geographic in those days and, all those things. So yeah, voices have big effect on you. You start seeing how other people see you through their voice, through their questions, through their assumptions.
Wow. A lot there to unpack. So you talk about, you come into the United States, and my wife's an immigrant, so I've kind of gotten to live a little bit of that through her eyes, but at least she had more, sounds like more of a supporting cast than you did during those moments. So that's a positive thing. So tell us a little bit about you transition, you get through Bible college, and then you go into your first pastoral role. Tell me how that went. And I mean, how did that feel?
Oh man. How much time do we have? So after we got married, Brendan, I got married in 1979, and I became a youth pastor. We got married in Atlanta, and we became a youth pastor in a suburb of Portland, Oregon called Gresham. And so understand this. I have had no experience with young people in America. I have no concept of what teenagers in America think, do, behave. And now I am a youth pastor, a youth leader. I mean, that was a trip because, I thought because I had the word pastor in front of my name, there'd be some kind of level of respect and honor. But, basically, I didn't understand how things were processed and how boys and girls behaved among themselves and all the things that were so different. And then I got selected to be pastor of a church in rural Michigan, Southwest Michigan. The closest blinking light to us was 3.5 miles. The closest McDonald's to us was 18 miles.
Mm.
And I was the darkest person in the entire county, Van Buren County, the darkest person there. And probably the first foreigner they'd ever seen.
Mm.
And if you think I have an accent now, you should have been with me back then. And everybody, the most common response from most people was, huh? 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 Which was to say it again, I'm sorry, forgive me, beg your pardon, that kind of thing. And then, that, of course, that translated into my preaching, my leadership, my meetings, my communication with people in the community. So I had to do a lot of adjusting on purpose because the voices that were coming back at me were, we like you, but we don't understand you. Voices that were coming back at me were, we like you, but you don't understand us. And now I was in a rural community. So most of my church were rural, farming people. So understand, I've never been on a farmland in America. And my and my parishioners, by and large, are farmers. So to meet with them, I just had to go out to their fields, and they would shut off their combine or their tractor, and I'd meet up with them over there. They did not know you had it. The pastor had an office. So those, I had to understand those voices that were unspoken voices. You don't understand us. And so what I was the most helpful for me, Travis, was to say to them, hey, listen, I've never been on a farm before. I don't know what farming is, but this John Deere looks amazing. Can you take me on a ride? I didn't want to go on a ride. And that's where friendships began. And I said, tell me about it. So what do you do? When do you do it? How do you do that? How do you have to exercise patience? What happens if weather is good? What happens if weather is bad? How do you sell your stuff? Do you have to take it to market, that the market come to you? I mean, stuff that we never ask. So those voices became important in my life. So as a pastor, looking back on it especially, and that moment, I did not know what I'm talking about now, but looking back on it, how important those voices were from me to them and from them to me.
So it sounds to me like you had to have some humility in those moments too, though, to realize you were going to have to learn a lot, and you wouldn't be Mr. Answer Man.
Oh man. Yeah. There were no answers. So I learned the power of questions. And I learned the power of saying I don't know. I learned the power of saying, I know you're asking me an important question, but can you unpack that question for me? I don't think I understand your question fully. So I don't know if it was humility at that time, Travis. You gave me too much credit. I think at that time it was like survival. How do I build a bridge? I'm their pastor now. I'm their pastor. So how do I build a bridge between them and me? The way they knew how to bless you was they'd bring you potatoes and tomatoes and onions and chickens and side of a beef. And I mean, we were well-fed people. You know, they say, hey, come to my garden and pick out anything you want. So there we were, squash and okra and zucchini and, you know, everything else, bell peppers, you just name it. They said, come anytime, Pastor, just come on over here and pick it out anytime, anything you want. Now, I did not. So they're assuming that I know how to pick vegetables.
Mhm.
But you know, that's how you learn. So no, it was not humility. It was survival, and saying, hey, if I don't ask questions, I'll be more stupid than I already am. I'm going to make more mistakes than I already am making. So I might as well say to them, I don't know, help me understand.
Wow. You know, Sam, you talk a lot about through your books and your preaching and a lot of the content that you put out there of the people that really surrounded you and really helped you, especially when you came in the US. You talk about a variety of people that really helped you to move forward. I remember you talked about, I think there was a lady in church that gave you $1 or something to go to buy like a sandwich or something. But you know, we all, I mean, all of us here, including yourself, has faced voices or people at different stages that have held you back or didn't necessarily want you to progress. Can you talk a little bit about that if you faced that throughout your journey and how you overcame those voices that really kind of hold you back?
So that's a really, really involved question there. Because Cameron, most people who try to hold you back don't do it openly. They don't come out and say, I'm going to hold you back. Most people will not say, I don't like you. Or most people will not say things to your face that would be derogatory. Most people are very behind the bush. You really don't know. And that's where discerning voices become so important. Discerning voices of who is really there for you, who's really there with you, who is not there for you and not there with you. And their voices will be voices of innuendo. Voices that are more questioning, like, are you sure that you really want to do that? You want to give up this secure thing here to go and do that? I remember when I was uh, transitioning, it was early 2000s when I was transitioning from my role as a university president to do what I do now. And I was at the top of my game at that time. The university was doing well. We were growing. We were receiving rewards, awards. I mean, all kinds of good stuff was happening. I was making more money than I ever made in my life. My assistant had an assistant, if you know what I mean. I had a resort parking spot with a sign saying "Reserved for the President." I mean, things were good. Things were good. People had to make an appointment to see me. I mean, things were really good. Uh, yeah. So when I started making this decision as to whether I should make this leap, there are voices that I think were well-meaning, but maybe not so much, that were saying, are you sure you want to do this? Have you prayed about it? You know, God is really blessing you. You don't want to walk away from God. You know, God is blessing you financially. You know, you don't want to, you know, look the other way for it. Have you ever done that before? Do you know how you're going to do? And so those voices start living in your head. And there's something about us that negative voices, the negative questioning lives stronger in our head than positive voices. You could either one of you can go and speak somewhere, and there can be 100 people line up and say, you did good. Travis, you were wonderful. Cameron, that was amazing. And 100 people will, you know, throw accolades at you, but there'll be that one person saying, you know, what you said over there, have you ever thought about this? And when you're driving away from there, who's living in your head? That one voice.
That's right.
Is that not true?
100%.
So so that's what I want to say, is that the voices that we call negative voices, voices trying to hold you back, are not they're not overt. I mean, they don't just come out themselves like, I'm against this and you shouldn't and why would you and you stupid. Not like that. They just question your intelligence, question your spirituality, question your commitment, question your integrity, question your promises that you made. I mean, and that is where those negative voices, you have to discern. There's a whole lot to be said about consider the source. Problem is, in most cases, we don't consider the source, or we don't know the source, or we respect the source and honor the source to the degree that we don't see that. We really think they are genuine, but a lot of times those voices will hold you back. So you got to be really discerning, Cameron, and say to yourself, they're making a point, but that's not the direction I want to go in.
You know, me and Cameron were actually having a conversation yesterday because both of us have kind of stepped into some projects and things that they're very they're top shelf things for us at these moments as far as new goals and projects we've taken on. And we were talking about it, and Cameron mentioned that he has found, and I've found the same thing, that there's just when you're ready to go, there's that little bit of doubt that begins to slip in, and those negative thoughts. You know, I've taken on some small business projects here recently, and as we're beginning to jump into them, I'm like, this is monstrous. This is huge. I'm not really sure if we can get this across the finish line. And then suddenly I'm just pausing and saying, well, wait a minute, where in the world did this come from? Like, we've been posited for days. We're prepared. We've got everything ready. But yet in the last moments, I'm ready to pull the plug on it because of, you know, just a couple of thoughts in the back of my head. So
you got to ask yourself, where do the voices come
right.
from?
Yeah.
Where did those voices come from? And
Yeah.
a lot of times those voices embed themselves and will emerge at the most inopportune times.
Mm.
You know, they're latent, they're immersed. I mean, they're immersed somewhere in the back of your head. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you'll hear this voice. And it's like, where did that come from? It was somebody else's voice in your head that went and stayed.
And I love what you said there, because you talked about, you know, you need to consider the source. And that's the challenge, is not all sources are equal.
That's
And,
right. Absolutely right. Absolutely.
A lot of value in that. Continuing the conversation, you know, we've kind of talked about that internal voice, but you mentioned earlier on that, you know, we are a voice to other people as well. You know, early on, I'm 34, just to give you a little context. You know, I have felt like I've just began to get some of my own voice in kind of my public life and things I'm doing business wise in the last year. You know, because, you know, we listen to your voice, we listen to John Maxwell's voice, we listen to all the influences, and you can hear a little bit of each of those people, including you, in our kind of how we speak. But then now I'm slowly getting my voice. How did that happen for you?
Don't know if it's happened for me. It's still happening.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I'm there. I do want to share with you 34. Travis, so I can give you an anecdotal. So you know, anybody listening to me, and you all know, I'm around leaders every day in some capacity. And so I don't have any data to prove it, but I have lived long enough to see it again and again and again, that most people don't start finding their voice till they're about 55.
Mm.
And I've given it some thought. Because I think till then we get ahead by other people's voices in our head. Till then we get ahead by doing stuff. Till then we get ahead by saying yes to most opportunities that come our way, because we're afraid that if I don't say yes to it, it may not come back to me. So it's more of that kind of thinking. But around mid-50s, let's go with that. Around mid-50s, You start coming into your own, like some people say, you become more comfortable in your own skin. It's saying, well, I think I know what I'm not good at. But that takes a long time to figure out what you're not good at, because you know what you're good at, but you don't know what you're not good at. So we start finding that out, and that's where the voice starts emerging. So in a couple months, I'll be 72, and as I look back over my life, I see myself as about that time start finding some kind of a voice in my head that said, you're still learning, you're still growing. Sam, you have a long ways to grow, but you're all right. You'll do okay. So you'll have a roof over your head, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll have food on your table, so you don't need any more clothes. You're good with that. You don't need any shoes. You're good with that. Your family will be fine. And there comes the settling, and the settling voice allows you to make what I call long-term decisions for life, because you are settled. You know you're a car and not a motorcycle anymore. And you just start. So I'm still finding my voice, Travis, just trying to figure out which voices, because there's still voices in my head from my childhood. And all of us have those that I have to, that emerge out of the blue, that I have to find ways to sometimes ignore, sometimes subdue, sometimes talk about. But I'm still emerging.
Stuff.
And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, Sam, the inner voice. You talked a lot about this in our time in Aruba, and I'm sure you talk about this in Voices. That inner voice and how it's evolved for you, because you've gone from uh, being in full-time ministry as a pastor to leading a university to now doing the work that you do today with Avail, Dream Releaser, helping other people publish books, get their voices out as well. And also with the work that you do, the speaking events, the events out in the Caribbean, the different conferences that you host. How has the inner voice evolved for you as your capabilities and your has expanded to such just grand at what it is today?
There's inner voices never go away. There's no way to reach in there and remove them. And those inner voices are part of who you are. A little while ago, Travis was talking about a business venture that he's undertaking, and everything going along fine, totally positive, already into it. And then all of a sudden, this, where did that voice come from? So our inner voice struggle is a real struggle. It is a real struggle. And the purpose that I wrote this book, Cameron and Travis, was to let people know how unaware we are of what we need to be aware of, and what so often motivates us. So there are three kinds of voices that are on the inside. I mean, on three kinds of questions that I think we have to think about. One is voices I need to hear. Number two is voices I don't need to hear. And number three is voices I need to change. So voices I need to hear are voices that are engaging, encouraging, challenging, voices that say to me how I need to live my life. Voices I don't need to hear are things that we talked about earlier: negative voices, people who hold us back, people who focus on deficiencies rather than our accomplishments, voices that keep reminding us of our past. That's a terrible way to be. And then voices I need to change. I need to change voices that I've discovered have not been helpful, discovered that they have held me back, discovered that they always rained on my parade. They've never taken me forward. So those if I can find some way to categorize these voices, so that there are times that I'll say, I need to hear that voice. And how do you hear that voice? It's not just verbal, it's not just auditory, it is what you're reading, what you're watching, so it's all of that. People that you hang with, people that you surround yourself with, people who make deposits into your life. So I can start saying, I like to be with them. I like to read more of that. I like to listen to more of that, so on and so forth. And then they say, no, I need to stay away from that. I need to stay away from that. And these have to be conscious decisions as we keep getting older. Otherwise, those other negative voices are going to hold us back. And there are definitely voices that you need to change in your life. And I'll give you one example. Voices of people who knew you as young Travis, who knew you as young Cameron, and can't see you as a business owner, can't see you as a professor, can see you at the level that you're at, and still want to communicate with you as to where you used to be. And they just, I don't think they mean any harm, but harm is still done. Because they're still big in our life, but they still see us as that little kid. And they'll say, I remember what you were. Yeah, I remember that too. But I'm not that now. Paul says, I was a child, I talked like a child, I did childish things, but now put them away. I'm a grown-up person now. I have a family now. So I think those voices that you have to change, you have to, I think the point I'm trying to make is that people have to be intentional about these things, about these voices in their life.
So as we kind of bring the plane to our landing here in a few minutes, but the first thing I really want to ask you is, how does faith play a part in voices? How has your faith played a part in the voices that you currently have, and the voices that you have to deal with on a daily basis?
Faith plays an enormous part in how you interpret those voices. So, for example, I go to the doctor and get a bad report. How I interpret that voice in light of God is still my healer, that Jesus died for my sicknesses, by his stripes I am healed. So my faith starts interpreting, framing or reframing the voice that I heard. I go to the bank to get a small business loan or whatever it is, and they say you don't qualify. We've all heard that sometime or the other in our life, and we have to interpret that in light of faith, and we walk away from there saying, God, you got to do a miracle. Why? Because my faith tells me that he's a miracle working God, and our retrospective testimonies tell us that God has been faithful and he has brought us through some totally impossible situations. So absolutely, it is the voice of the scriptures, the voice of the Holy Spirit on the inside of us, the voice of pastors and preachers and teachers and authors, podcasters like yourselves, webinar, masterclasses, all those are voices. And I think the faith component helps us to discern and say, no, not going to believe that. That's not for me. I believe God's going to heal me. I believe God's going to provide for me. I believe my marriage is going to be secure. Otherwise, if we don't have that faith component to interpret everything, we'll start believing the negativity that surrounds all of us.
So what would you say is some of the biggest challenges you have today? I mean, as you've said, you're in your 70s now. I'd be curious to know what voices do you still struggle with today?
So the world that I'm in, I basically influence influencers like yourselves. So that is the mission on my life. to influence influencers. And to influence influencers, I have to be thinking about what content that there's nothing new under the sun. But what content do I have or I can repurpose to make sure that I can influence influencers? So when Cameron, you were with me and about 50 other leaders in Aruba in January of this year, that was a voice in my head. Whenever I'm in front of leaders, the voice in my head is, the challenging voice in my head is, if your call is to influence influencers, do you have what it takes to influence influencers? And that is where, you know, I live on the brink of insecurity. I live on the brink of all these people have traveled from all over the country to be in this one room. They've paid good money to be there. Do you have what it takes? I'm always wondering. I can't tell you that I ever go into any of my consultations or speaking with the feeling like I got this. I just don't. I'm always nervous. I'm nervous with you guys right now. I'm always nervous because and for me that has become a good thing. And the nervousness I have is not like you're stupid and you'll fall flat on your face. Nervousness is, do you really have what it takes? Have you prepared well for this? When they ask you a question, will you have a meaningful answer, or will you just fill a time with some fluff? So yeah, I'm channeling those voices, and it's just been a very, very important part of my life right now to influence influencers. But to do that, that voice which says, I have to be ready. So always my question is, are you ready? Are you ready? And the answer is always the same. No, you're not. And so I always go into it with saying, okay, it's showtime, curtains lifting. You got to stand up there and talk. So yeah, it's pretty messy.
So you would say the weight of that nervousness and anxiety of what you do kind of on a day-to-day, that never goes away.
Yeah, it never goes away now. So when last night I was looking at my schedule for today, and of course I knew that it was on today, and it was like, okay, Lord, Cameron and Travis have this platform, and the platform is not to sell Sam Chan's books. The platform is to get a positive message to leaders out there. And so how can I be a part of their vision? And will I be able, so my nervousness is, will I flow with your vision? My nervousness is, will I connect with your constituency? And my nervousness is that they are placing their credibility into my hands, and will I let them down? Or will I be a plus for them or a minus for them? Because there's no neutral. Either you help somebody move forward or you keep them back. So, you know, that's where my nervousness comes from.
Awesome. Can you share maybe, Sam, some of the, I mean, you've shared this in a lot of your content and writing, but for those listening and watching, can you share maybe some of the outside voices that have had a great influence on your life?
Yeah. Let me start with my parents. My parents have had a major influence in my life. I've had some teachers, especially at the college level, who had a great influence in my life, who believed in me. Cecil Murphy, he has written over 200 books, either himself or ghostwritten for amazing people, for Ben Carson, for different ones. And he was one of my professors in college, and he was the first author that I ever met, somebody who had actually written a book. And I remember the book he had just written was When in Doubt, Hug 'em, for pastors. And I remember that. So now this book, the Voices book, is my 30th book. But I would have not written that book had it not been for Cecil Murphy, back in 1975 saying to me, Sam, you're the thing about writing books. Yeah. His voice. And then he said to me, he said, this, now we are fast forward to early 1990s. I'm back at the college as president, and I'm thinking about writing a book. And guess who I called? I called him. He said, yeah, I'll write with you. So my first 5 books, he wrote with me. You know, his voice. Yeah, so there are many, many voices like that, and you know, many voices you'll never meet. You'll read them vicariously. Or sometimes it'll be somebody else's voice through somebody else's voice. Because the thesis sentence of this book is that the voice in my head become the voice in my mouth, and the voice in my mouth become the voice of somebody else's head. So you know, this in this program that we're just doing right now, and those who will be listening to us, watching us, however they're going to do that, you know, there'll be a voice in their head. And hopefully it'll be a clarifying voice, an empowering voice, an encouraging voice, a discriminating voice.
Well, Sam, we can definitely say for sure your voice has been a very positive impact in both of our lives, and we appreciate you greatly for that. So keep it coming.
Thank you. And may I give your audience an opportunity to get my book?
Absolutely.
At whatever they want to pay, whatever they want to pay. So here's I'll repeat it at least twice. It is voicesbookoffer.com, voicesbookoffer.com. And when you go there, you'll have the opportunity to get my book, and here's the price. Can I tell you the price? Whatever you want to pay. How's that? Have you ever heard that? Whatever you want to pay, that's the price. And if you want some more of it, what you'll have resources available to you like master classes, study guides, audio book, all of that will be available to you as well. So just go to voicesbookoffer.com and get the book for whatever you want to pay. I think that's a good deal.
Well, awesome. Well, we always like to wrap up with a couple of the rapid fire questions, and we've gotten to ask you these a few times. So I think one of them you've actually completed since the last time we talked. If you remember, is that you said that one of your bucket lists was New Zealand, and I believe you've been to New Zealand since then, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with that one. Is there a new bucket list item for Sam Chan?
Yeah, my bucket list item is to write at least 3 more books. I have them working. I'm working on them right now. And I got big topics. One of them I hope to teach on in Bermuda. Cameron comes to those events pretty regularly. Travis, you are invited as well. Cameron can tell you it's a great event. You've seen pictures about it. So
yeah.
It's a good event. Bring your wife to it, Travis. You will win amazing points. So yeah, so I want to again create content to influence influencers. So yeah, I want to do at least maybe 3 more.
Now, I know you always say you don't really read books as much as you used to, but have you read anything interesting lately? Any articles or anything come to mind?
Yeah. Recently I read a whole thing by Rita McGarth, McGarth. She's a brilliant leadership thought leader, and a great book by her is called Seeing Around Corners. Seeing Around Corners. And that is just about seeing what is ahead from a business perspective. And I think that applies to the faith community as well. It applies to really every community, including the aviation community. Looking around corners, seeing around corners. So yeah, it's just a way of thinking. So now when I read, I'm not. This is not. I don't think I'm going to be able to express myself right. I'm looking for provocative thought. Not necessarily the content, but the thought. I need something to make me think. Make me think in ways I have not thought before.
All right. Well, Cameron, do you got any final thoughts or questions?
One of the things I'm curious about, Sam, you're approaching 72. What keeps you going and doing the work that you're doing? What keeps you pushing forward?
People like you.
Mm,
I get my inspiration from people like you in your early 30s, conquering your worlds the best you can, taking on new ground, moving forward, and not satisfied with where you're at, because where you're at is still a good place. I mean, most people in the world would be happy to be where you're at, but the dissatisfaction in you, in a positive way, it becomes an inspiration for me. So I just look at, I don't want to be pejorative by saying young people like you, because it has nothing to do with age. It's a way of thinking. And the two of you, I've known you all for years now. The two of you keep taking new ground. And that's inspiring for me. So I say, okay, Sam, you got some ground to take yet as well. So yeah, I just wake up in the morning, I bounce out of bed. I look forward to the day. I look forward to studying every day. I read 3 to 5 hours every day, all kinds of stuff. So I look forward to learning and growing every day. And it's energizing for me, and hopefully I'll keep thinking.
Awesome. Well, as always, another great podcast. Thank you, Sam, for another great interview. We look forward to doing a couple more in the future.
Look forward to it as well anytime. Love what you guys do.
thank you.